Happy July 4th. Hopefully you had a safe and wonderful holiday, but it's July, which means training camp is right around the corner. Let's give 4 thoughts on every single division in the NFL.
You are Locked On NFL, your daily NFL podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi again, and welcome in to another edition of Locked On NFL. He is Tony Wiggins. I'm James Rapien. Hopefully you had a wonderful 4th of July holiday. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Follow Locked On NFL wherever you get your podcast. And Tony, ready or not, training camp is almost here, which I know a lot of our listeners and viewers can't wait for. We certainly can't wait. And so now it's time to go around the NFL in honor of the July 4th holiday. 4 thoughts on every division in the NFL. And let's start with, to me, the best conference. And if you stack these two conferences, the AFC, just quarterback-wise, head, shoulders, toes, maybe even more above the NFC. So let's start in the AFC, and let's start in the AFC East. 4 thoughts on every division. I'll let you go first. What's the first thing that comes to mind when you think of this division?
Aaron Rodgers going to New York City. That's the first thing that comes to mind. And can a team that really, if you watched them play last year, can a team like the Jets get elevated by adding a guy, even if he's not still in his prime, but still a very, very good player? So, yeah, that is the first thought. The second one is, can Tua Tagovailoa stay healthy and allow Miami to fulfill its vast potential with all of their weapons on offense and all of that speed, and the addition of Jalen Ramsey on defense? So, to me, those are the first 2 things that come up when I think about the AFC East.
Yeah, I could certainly see that. Look, Aaron Rodgers gives the Jets, they won 7 games last year, and they didn't have even decent quarterback play. Can he go there, rise, take that to where he's maybe the second best quarterback in that division? Maybe he's the best. Maybe he outperforms Josh Allen. That's not crazy. I could see that happening. And so I get why that would be your first thought. Tua, that's certainly a question mark, but Dolphins fans are certainly optimistic going into camp about him. Offensive weapons needed would be mine. True or false? Mac Jones is when healthy, the 4th best quarterback in this division. If they're all healthy.
Easy. True.
You can't win like that in today's league.
No.
In today's NFL. And so when I look at the New England Patriots, it's, man, how can you make life easier on Mac Jones and put him in a position to have success in a conference we already talked about that's so just stacked with quarterbacks, knowing that most weeks you're going to be – I don't want to pretend like Mac can't get it done to a degree or manage the game or anything like that, but you're going to want to put as much talent around him as possible because you probably have the second best quarterback in most matchups. So talent needed, and that's in regards to the New England Patriots. And then the Buffalo Bills, it's odd. Like there's some weird dysfunction right now with the Stephon Diggs stuff, and they extend their head coach, extend the GM, and I think that's a message to Diggs saying, hey, these are our guys. At the same time, will the Bills because if the Jets take a step forward and Tua stays healthy, is there at least a path for the Bills to take a step back after winning 13 games last year? I think it's certainly interesting to look at it from that perspective. And maybe they don't because they have a lot of talent.
Yeah, and the Bills somehow have gone from the team that everybody thought was next to all of a sudden a lot of pundits, whether I agree with them or not, everyone is sort of treating the Bills as if their window of opportunity has gone by and has passed them by a little bit. And I don't think that's the case. I think if Von Miller had stayed healthy last year, they would have had a decent shot at getting a little bit further. But they have to figure out what's going on with Diggs and this, I don't want to call it dysfunction, but it just everything surrounding him kind of seems like weird. Maybe he's such an intense guy. He's the type of person that kind of wears on teammates after a while, and you kind of want him to dial it back, but he won't. And it just seems like something is a little bit off then nobody really knows what it is, right?
Yeah, so we'll see. Could be nothing, might be something. Let's go from the East to the AFC North. Best division in football. That's the first thing that comes to mind to me. I don't see a team that and none of these teams are perfect, but I don't see a team that has such a glaring weakness that it will, like, obviously keep them out of the playoffs. I could totally see Cleveland making the playoffs this year, Pittsburgh making the playoffs this year. Obviously, Baltimore and Cincinnati did make the playoffs. So to me, first thing when I see the North, best division in football, top to bottom. They have the high-end talent, teams that are thinking Super Bowl, and then teams like the Browns and Steelers that, yeah, they might not have made the playoffs last year, but they're expecting to this season.
It really reminds me of the old NFC East, where every single game involving the AFC North is a rivalry. Everybody hates Pittsburgh, you know what I mean? And Cleveland and Cincinnati don't like each other. And now that Cincinnati's gotten good, especially with the way that the playoff game ended last year with Baltimore thinking they probably should have beat them. So I mean, it's like every single game, and of course the natural rivalry between Baltimore and Cleveland. It's almost as if every single team hates every other team in that division. And it reminds me a lot of the old NFC East from back in the 90s.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think that the second thought would be, is this the year for the Bengals? Is this the year that they become the first team to win this division 3 straight years? No team has done it because it's been such a black and blue division, because you've seen Ben Roethlisberger rise to the top, and then the Ravens figure out a way to dethrone the Steelers in the division. And I'm talking about in the mid 2000s and early 2010s. Then the Bengals have 2 different eras with Carson Palmer and Andy Dalton. The Browns haven't won the division since coming back and never won the AFC North. So there's a lot there. And on paper, I think you could say, oh, Bengals, AFC North, they're the favorites. At the same time, there's a reason no team has done it. And so I think that's certainly a huge storyline, considering I just said it's the best division in football.
It is. Quick thought, though. We're giving Pittsburgh a little bit of a pass. So this will be maybe the last thought on this division. We're giving Pittsburgh a little bit of a pass where we just beat up on New England because they have the 4th best quarterback in the division, right?
Yeah.
Kenny Pickett's the 4th best quarterback in the AFC North. But somehow people don't hold that over the Steelers' head the way that everyone holds the Mac Jones.
You know why?
Why? Tell me.
Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Pat Freiermuth, Najee Harris. I think they have the 2nd best group of skill players in this division. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's even close with the Ravens. And I think the Browns, you could make that argument. But to me, I would take the Steelers guys over the Browns guys. It's close, though, because I think Nick Chubb's the best runner in football. But I think that's why is the cast is better. It's really about the offensive line in Pittsburgh. But I get your point, because I do agree with you that Kenny Pickett is the 4th best quarterback in this division.
Yep, he is. I'm glad you agree with me, James. I like when you do that sometimes. You know, yesterday was my birthday, so that's a belated birthday gift to me.
That's right. See, I forgot. Yep. I meant to at the top, and the 4th of July stole the show, but happy birthday, Tom.
The 4th of July have stolen the show my entire life for my birthday.
42 years old.
Yeah, for the 12th time. Right, I'm 42 But listen, I've got a cake on the 4th. When you're a kid growing up in the hood and you ain't got no money, grandma says we can't party 2 days in a row. So she actually laid a guilt trip on me back in the day. She said, so you want to be selfish and have a birthday party and then everybody else just does nothing on the 4th? Or do you want just to get a cake on the 4th and celebrate with everybody else? So I said, let's celebrate with everybody else. But damn it, now I don't do that anymore. I celebrate my birthday.
You should.
That's right.
Should. I'm glad you do that. We'll continue the celebration, continue our divisions, and dive into the NFC along with the rest of the AFC coming up next. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is a one-stop shop for all things sports wagering. Whether you want to wager on Major League Baseball and take a swing at MLB wagering on baseball, well, now's the perfect time. Because if you've been toying with the idea, right now you can get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $200. So let's say you bet $20, you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. You can take advantage of this great offer right now at FanDuel.com/lockedon. Plus, maybe you want to get in on the action on some NFL futures bets, all of this NBA action and free agency, making it really, really interesting. You can go that route as well. But the only route to do it where you're going to get that $200 in bonus bets, win or lose, is by going to FanDuel.com/lockedon. It's FanDuel.com/lockedon. They're America's #1 sports book for a reason. FanDuel.com/lockedon. All right, Tone, let's keep things rolling. We have two more divisions in the AFC. We'll speed it up here. Let's go to the AFC South. What's the first thing that comes to mind? This is obviously the division of the team you cover daily, the Jacksonville Jaguars.
The first thing that comes to mind is the fact that the Jaguars have an opportunity to show people that they're for real. And it's going to be different this year because they're not going to be able to sneak up on people. They're going to have a little bit of a bullseye on their back. They're going to be the favorites to win the division. So it's going to be all about Trevor Lawrence taking that next step and going from a guy who was hovering around the top 10 at quarterback in people's minds. And now he has to go out and try to play like he's one of those 5 or 6 best quarterbacks in the league. Doug Peterson has something different to deal with this year. And what that is making sure guys don't get complacent. So that, along with number 2, is what's going on in Tennessee, man. I keep hearing these rumors of all of this wild stuff off the field, but to me, the Titans are still the Titans. You know, they were this close to being the division winners last year against Jacksonville. That game, they were winning with 2 minutes to go. So it's going to be a tale of the new kids on the block trying to knock off and make sure that they keep off the team that's used to winning a lot and used to being at the top of the division in the Tennessee Titans.
The first thing that comes to mind, and I mean no disrespect to Trevor Lawrence or the Jacksonville Jaguars, Doug Peterson has done a tremendous job, and I think they're trending in the right direction, is the worst division in football. From the best to the worst. Oh, God. Who's good? The Colts are good.
I called it the Mountain West of the NFL for a long time, but come on, man.
The Titans are good. The Titans aren't good. The Colts aren't good, and Houston is rebuilding, and they have 2 bricks and nothing to lay them down with. I mean, that's the first.
They're better than they don't have the 49ers, but I think the NFC West stinks, and I think the AFC South is a problem. I think the NFC South is a problem too.
We will get to those. We will get to those. But to me, I just
call it
look at
worst division.
The worst division in football. By the way, that's fine. Go win it. It doesn't matter. You don't get extra points for winning the division if it's the best division versus not. I would rather be in the AFC South than the AFC North. You don't get extra seeding purposes. You don't get help there. So, all right, Jacksonville, go win 12 games then, since it's the worst division in football. I think it is. So that's the other thing that comes to mind.
On the Jaguars to win 12 games in a bad division. That's what you're doing. You're trying to say they should win those games in that division.
They probably should win 12 games. They won 9 last year. You just said to prove they're for real. 12. I think that's a realistic number in that division. And here's my other thought. Young stars at quarterback, question mark. Is that what we're going to see with the Colts and the Texans? CJ Stroud, Anthony Richards, are those 2 guys going to be stars? Are they not? I think we're going to know and find out if they can at least flash early. I'm not expecting either team to be good, but can you show me flashes like Cam Newton did, like Joe Burrow did? All these #1 picks, you usually know pretty quickly if their ceiling is superstar or if it's like, this might be Jared Goff. And so that's what I think we'll hopefully know. Now, maybe not. You have the Josh Allen example. You have some other examples like that. But to me, I will be looking at those 2 teams. And, yes, your Jags should win 12 games in this division.
Yeah. Sure. I like how you ended it with such a great statement of what I believe is true. After you said a whole bunch of stuff I might not agree with, but – no, I do. I know that there's something to prove with these young teams. I tell you what, I think Houston's going to be a serious problem for people, and I believe that because I just think that they played really, really hard last year. If they beat the Jaguars in one of the 2 matchups, but then they also went in overtime with the Chiefs, and that's when they weren't really who they are now. I really think DeMeco Ryans is going to add a lot to that franchise. And I think CJ Stroud is a really, really good quarterback. And I do believe that some people said he's Kirk Cousins. I don't think that. I think he's better than that. I think C.J. Stroud has a very, very high ceiling. He can make all of the throws. He can get away. He can do a lot of things with the football. I just think, how quickly does it come together for them? I do think the Colts have a little ways to go. But if Anthony Richardson is half as good as some people think his ceiling suggests that he might be, they could be really good, really, really fast, because I do think they have a lot of people on defense, and they still have a really good running back, and they got some tall wide receivers too. So accuracy will be helped by the fact that they have a lot of guys with big catch radiuses.
Let's move on to the AFC West. First things first, it's the Mahomes show, right? The first thing that comes to mind when I think of that division is Patrick Mahomes and the defending Super Bowl champions. They're at the top of the mountain. And will they get dethroned? Is this the year that the Chargers realize their full potential? I think that's the other thing that comes to mind. And then, honestly, Raiders, Broncos, will either of these teams make a leap forward? And you got Sean Payton there in Denver. You have Josh McDaniels, who, ugly start last year in the Raiders. Can he bring some stability there? And can either of these teams kind of rise up after being, a 5-win and 6-win team respectively last year?
Sean Payton's going to make a big difference. I don't have any faith. Yeah, I don't have any faith in Josh McDaniels, though, because the one thing I was hoping for his sake and for the Raiders fans is that it didn't look like Denver when he first took over, and that's exactly what happened. So sometimes guys can't get out of their own way. Nothing has changed. I do believe Peyton makes a tremendous difference. I think he's a way better coach than Hasselbeck, obviously, but or Nathaniel Hackett, I mean. But they were expected to do big things last year, and then it kind of went away. And Russell Wilson, I never expected him to look like that, and I never expected the questions that ended up coming up about him to manifest themselves the way. So he has a lot to prove, but I think Sean Payton is the one guy that can get it out of him. I tell you what, he's not going to be able to BS his way through anything, because Sean Payton doesn't let anything go.
That's a good point. And I do think he will make somewhat of a difference. We'll see if they have enough talent there in Denver. All right, Tone, we've gotten through the AFC, probably a little bit slower. Speaking of that, Russell Wilson going to have to run faster this year. So that's my last thought on Denver. He's going to have to run more, I think, if they're going to be good. That said, let's get to the NFC right now, or up next with, 4 divisions to go, an entire conference. We'll do that coming up next. All right, Tone, let's dive into the NFC here. We'll start in the NFC East. You mentioned them earlier, the defending NFC champion, Philadelphia Eagles. Can they do it again? Are they going to take a step back? I think that part is interesting because I look at their defensive line depth. Obviously, Jalen Hurts got the big contract. I love their wide receivers at the top of that wide receiver room. There's a lot to like about the Philadelphia Eagles. And so can they win this division again? I think it's going to be a pretty competitive one, with the Cowboys adding some key pieces as well.
Man, the Eagles have just hit a hot spot on developing players, picking the right guys that fit their scheme. It's almost as if they're just playing a game that nobody else is playing right now. And that's because they built their thing up in their identity to the point where they know exactly. And it seems like no matter where they're picking the draft, guys just fall to them that are Philadelphia Eagle type players. And to me, this all started when they picked Devontae Smith. It's something about him that you pick a guy that high, and then the very next year he's so unselfish because he was unselfish in college. And then you bring in A.J. Brown, and Devontae Smith just keeps going and keeps chugging along. And then on defense, they basically turned into the Georgia Bulldogs in the NFL. That's what they've done, because they keep going back to that well. And why would you not when Georgia's put out so much talent? But it just seems like they keep getting Eagle-type players that just fall right in their lap, and they're drafting them and signing guys in free agency that just fit what they do so well. So I really anticipate the fact that I think Philly might just be the best team in the NFL in a lot of people's eyes, and they might be sitting right at number one, when it's all said and done, because they do have dynamic skill position players, and they do have a quarterback who's just as steady, and you can count on him. He's a pro. He's improved the way he passes the football. The offensive line is good. They got edge rushers. They got guys that can cover and tackle. Man, they just don't have any holes. And to me, the Philadelphia Eagles are, in my opinion, they're the #1 team in the NFL.
He's the best quarterback in the conference. I looked again to make sure, as I was saying, I'm like, easily the division. And that's what I was going to say. I'm like, no, Jalen Hurts is the best quarterback in this conference.
Mm-hmm.
And so anytime he lines up, he's such a threat. You put elite weapons around him. And I think that's what some of these teams with young quarterbacks need to realize is what you need to do. One, put the quarterback in position to succeed and put weapons around him. I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
What is Dak Prescott? Is he more famous Kirk Cousins? Is he more than that? That matters to me, right? And that's – and I'm not trying to be insulting there, but they were 4-4 on the road last year.
Yeah.
They need to be able to go toe-to-toe with elite quarterbacks. And most of the time in the NFC, you don't see them right now. That could change, but as of right now, you don't. And so you may win 12 games. But did anyone buy into the Cowboys as a serious Super Bowl contender last year? I think it comes down to Dak and him being elite. And I just don't know if he has that in him. So that's another thought. I think the Giants were fraudulent last year. And so that's the other one. They belong in that AFC South more so than anything. I'm going to just keep taking shots at your division. I think that they were fraudulent and they're going to take a step back as well. So we'll see.
Washington is intriguing. Washington has a lot of players on that team that everyone knows their name. And they have good running backs. I think they have really, really good receivers, even though they all kind of look alike and they're all about the same size. But with McLaurin as well as Dotson, this is going to be a year where Sam Howell, they're depending on a young quarterback. If he can get it done, they're going to make some noise. But I think they'll continue to be a really, really hard out every week. But they're probably more of a 500 team than anything. I like Brian Daboll. I like the Giants. I like Brian Daboll, even though they did more and they overachieved a little bit. The way that they did it, though, is not lucky. They did it by punching people in the mouth and being able to scheme things up. And I think he's going to continue to be able to do that in New York. Dallas is going to do
He's going to do that for 7 wins this year is what he's going to do.
Okay. I'm going to hold you to it. But Dallas, to me, is the team that we're going through every team. There's 4 teams in every division. So these are the 4 thoughts that we have on every single division. Dallas, to me, is the team that doesn't have great leadership. And everyone in leadership, there's a question mark about it. There's a question mark about the coach, McCarthy. There's a question mark about who's really running the team. There's a question mark about the quarterback. Everything about them is like you get an incomplete grade. You know what I mean? You don't really know. But from a talent perspective, you don't want to go out there and have a bad day against them because they'll blow you out. But you can also make them have a bad day, and you can catch Dallas slipping, especially if you're one of those elite teams.
Let's keep things rolling. Go to the NFC North, and we will speed it up here a little bit. To me, is Detroit for real?
Yes.
Everyone's on the Detroit train. All right. Are you going to bite kneecaps and win the division? If you're ever going to win the division, it's this year. I like what they've done. Jameson Williams is suspended, but I like their weapons overall. Amon-Ra St. Brown leads the way. Jared Goff certainly played well last year, especially down the stretch. Okay. All right, Detroit, let's see you. And so that's my first thought. Second one, is Jordan Love the next guy or just a guy? After Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, it's put up or shut up time for Jordan Love. He's had a couple of years now. He needs to flash in a hurry. And if not, well, the Packers could be in the quarterback market a year from now or less than a year from now, next offseason.
Yeah, so Green Bay is a little bit perplexing because on one hand, I feel you should feel good that you had like 38 years of Hall of Fame quarterback play, right? Or something like that. 35 years of Hall of Fame quarterback play in a row. And now I kind of feel sorry for this kid because he has to live up to that. That's hard to do. There are organizations that haven't had a guy as good as one of those dudes. And now he comes in and he has to hold down. What level is good? What level of good is good enough for those fans to be happy with what they've had the last 2 or 3 decades? That's hard to deal with. I agree with your point about about Detroit, the thing I think about with them is how far can they really go with Jared Goff as their quarterback? That's the biggest deal, because we can talk about winning games during the regular season, but to win games against good teams, you're always going to get the side eye from people when you think about that. The Bears, let's just see what they end up doing. The Bears had a really good offseason, but I still want to see it. I still need to know if Justin Fields is the guy. And as far as Minnesota, I have no clue. I don't know what's going on with Luke Braun. Shout out to Luke Braun for Locked On NFL as well as Locked On Minnesota Vikings. I just don't know about Minnesota. I don't know if they're trying to rebuild, reload, what they're doing. I just know they're paying Kirk Cousins too much money.
That's fair. Let's keep things rolling now with the NFC South. And I know a lot of people, when I said that the AFC South was the worst division in football, people say, what about the NFC South? I actually think all four of these teams, you can make the argument, can win the division. I probably have Tampa fourth because it's a bit of an aging roster, but I see the talent there. I like what Carolina's done. I think they have some solid talent around Bryce Young, so we'll see. But to me, Atlanta and New Orleans, Derek Carr gets slept on, and I think he can raise the floor of the quarterback play in New Orleans, and they have a solid defense. We know what they bring there. They do have some weapons. I like Chris Olave a lot. I think he takes a step. And then Atlanta, they have everything. There's just a question mark at quarterback. Can Desmond Ridder be Jared Goff?
Right.
Like, can he do that? Because if he's that, I think Atlanta could win the division too. So they might not have a team that has the ceiling of Jacksonville, but I think all four of these teams have a higher floor than what you get in that AFC South. So just to give you an idea.
Carolina is in a good spot, and Bryce Young being picked number one couldn't have gone to a better conference, because there's a chance that he's already the best quarterback in that division. And I like Derek Carr a little bit,
You're
but
right.
not like that. There are too many question marks about Derek Carr. I think Tampa's in some serious trouble. I think their offensive line and their quarterback play is spotty, and I think they've gotten old at some positions.
You don't believe in Baker?
No, hell no. I don't believe in no Baker Mayfield. I told you that before. I ain't believing in no Baker Mayfield, but
said, hell no.
Nah. And Atlanta, while that's another team that had a really good offseason. In fact, they've strung a couple of drafts in a row. I want to see if Terry Fontenot ever gets in trouble, though, from drafting a tight end one year in the first in the top five, and then drafting a running back in top 8. At some point, doing things like that, even though those guys are good football players, doing things like that at some point might come back to bite them. And if they don't win early, people are going to bring that up every time they get a chance, is that's what he did. And he's going against all the rules of team building, but I think he's left a lot to be desired by doing that. But like you said, if they don't get the quarterback position down, then none of that stuff is going to work out.
Final division is the NFC West. To me, question marks all over. I even have questions about the San Francisco 49ers, who you could argue has the best roster in the league, but it's like, who plays quarterback? We've heard the stuff about Trey Lance, now third team behind Sam Darnold, obviously Brock Purdy. It's just rough out there in San Francisco at the quarterback position, and you look at the rest of the roster, and it's ready to go. And so to me, question mark at quarterback, can Kyle Shanahan get the most out of his guys? We know he can, but is that good enough? I think that's a question. The other thought is the Rams. I think the Rams stock is so low right now that I would buy it. They're not a deep team, but they still have some high-end talent. And I know they lost Jalen Ramsey. I need to know if Matt Stafford's healthy, because if Matt Stafford's healthy, the Rams are going to be much more of a problem than people realize today.
Matt Stafford and Cooper Kupp. Just think about it. I'm gonna just bring this up one more time. Cooper Kupp basically getting hurt cost me the fantasy football championship.
Me too. Right now. Multiple leagues broke my heart.
But they're going to be an interesting team to watch, because it was cool when they were chasing everything. Remember, the coach was talking about maybe even giving it up. Going out on top. You know what I'm saying? And riding out to the sunset. But I think this division has the biggest variance from best team to worst team of any team, any division. I think Arizona's awful. I think they're terrible. But I think the best team in the division is 49ers. I think they're top 5. And Arizona might be the worst team in the league this year. And they've given up a lot over the last few years. They've changed their management, their coaching, and all of that stuff. But I'm still not sold on Kyler Murray as a player. The way people feel about Lamar Jackson, I don't feel that way about Lamar Jackson, but I do feel that way about Kyler Murray. I just don't know if winner is what I see when I watch him play. So Yeah. That's why I think, other than San Francisco, even with San Francisco, I think this and the AFC and the NFC South are the two divisions that I just have the least amount of interest in.
And Geno Smith would be the last thing for me. For real or not? Was that a
one-year
career outlier? Or can he – we'll find – because now he has even more weapons.
Yep, we've seen guys do it before. We saw Rich Gannon do it. We saw Chris Chandler do it, Jim Plunkett. And I know I'm dating myself when I say that, but – a lot of guys just for some reason didn't get it, and then the light switch came on, and boom, there it is. And I think Geno's that way.
And if that happens, they could to me win the division. They could beat San Francisco out because I think their roster is even better this year than it was last year. Hope you enjoyed it. Thoughts on every single division, every single team. Hopefully you had a great holiday. Happy birthday to Tony Wiggins. Like I said, 42.
Yeah, man.
And until next time, Tone.
I don't care who tell it. Yep.
We're inching closer toward training camp. Thank you so much for listening. For Tony Wiggins, I'm James Rapien. Appreciate you watching Locked On NFL.